I hope everybody's having a good day today in the Lord. Praise the Lord. I'm uh, just want to share a little bit with you today, and I wanted to read Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And if you have your Bibles, you can follow along with me, or later on, you can definitely go along to it and read it for yourself. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. And I'm going to read down to verse 8. And it says, everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. So, I just want you to understand that there is a time and a place for everything. Everything has its time and its place. And it's true. There's a time and a place for everything. And just getting some stuff pulled up here. But did you know that right now, the Biden administration is looking into finding out how they can put up different border zones, or if you wanted to cross over into Oklahoma, Texas, or different areas, where the state lines where you live next to go visit your friend, go to work, a convention, whatever you want to do, just because it's a free country. All of a sudden, they're trying to find and explore ways where, well, unless you have been fully vaccinated, then you can not cross over into the next state. I guess unless you agreed to be vaccinated coming back, maybe you got, I don't know how it's all going to play out, but right now they're just looking into that. There is a bill. I meant to prepare it and get it together. I have to pull it maybe on the next video, but it's congress.gov. You can even do the research yourself, but there is a bill that's been put on the table by another Democrat. It's, in other words, what this bill is that if you do not have your vaccinations or up to date on your boosters that they're going to start implementing later on down the line, then you won't be able to travel by plane, which, they're trying to shut down ground and air to keep people confined and restrained to certain areas via the DHS, Biden's DHS, by Mayorkas, who is the secretary of the DHS. And, they're following not only a Biden agenda, but really it's because he doesn't really have an original thought, but it's a more so, in my opinion, I believe he's taken orders from the Chinese, as he has praised them and praised Xi many times over. And so, I read Ecclesiastes chapter 3 to tell you that enough is enough. And it's time to there's a time for a lot of things. It's time to preach the gospel. It's time because our time is getting short. It's time to, the church has to wake up. Where is the church? It's like, hello, they're MIA. And collectively, and the church has to wake up, rise up, speak up, and be the church, and quit trying to conform to the world and be like the world to win the world. But it's sad though when many in the church are so deceived or lost or spiritually confused about what's happening. They have no spiritual eyes. They have eyes physically, but have no spiritual eyes to see what's happening and what's going on and what time it really is to preach the gospel. There's a time and place for all things. There's a time, to stand up and to speak out and to say enough is enough. I was watching a video the other day about, these different parents in these different school districts across the U.S. who are just fed up with all these mask mandates on their children. And, I've heard of different stories and how they tried to force these on children, which it should be a parental issue and choice. And, where I live right now, it's recommended, but it's left up to the child and staff if they choose to wear a mask at this time. The people here in this school district hasn't had to get in an uproar or yet. But thank God for that. But that doesn't mean we should fall asleep. The thing is that they're trying to push their weight around with this whole COVID thing. They're trying to, in blue cities, there's different people who are in positions of power who are trying to force their way of their ideologies onto you, and you will conform and bow down or else. And they don't like it when you push back. They don't like it when you resist. They don't like it, for example, even these exemption letters that a certain ministry had put out, and it was doing so well and got so many testimonials to where even USA Today wrote a paper about it. Dr. Fauci commented on it, and he also said when the vaccines get FDA approval, which they should never have, I believe there's a lot of backdoor deals going on there. But Fauci was saying when these vaccines receive FDA approval, there will be stiffer or stricter mandates. Paraphrasing. So stiffer, stricter mandates. Well, number one, you can't mandate anything that goes against a person's moral will or in general, physical abilities, etc., etc. Now, again, you have the harlots and the prostitutes at the Twitters and the fake books and all the other YouTubes that will try to run cover and delete videos and censor people because they are serving an agenda. That's why, like Jen Psaki said, we are working with, paraphrasing, working with Facebook and Twitter and all these other ones. In other words, translation. What they're really saying is that we are coercing them and forcing them to do our agenda. And if they don't, then we could penalize them, etc., etc., etc. So in other words, it's do what we say or else. You will lose your exemption, you will lose your protections, and, and so on and so on. So, you have a lot of companies out here, even I was reading about Ascension, who are saying that certain, and I talked to a lady who worked for Ascension today who actually treats my daughter, and she said that yes, I think sometime by October they want all staff of Ascension around the nation to be fully vaccinated or fully vaccinated by sometime in October. And what is a relief is that I see that not only her, but others in the system aren't for this. They want this to pass. But let me tell you something. It's never going to pass. And it's never going to go away. Because the more ground you give them, the more you bow down, the more you acquiesce and you yield to their tyrannical, authoritarian demands, then they're just going to keep asking for more. And the devil never stops. The devil just keeps on pushing because he's pushy, and he demands and commands, just like the 3 Hebrew boys were forced to bow down and worship the statue. And Nebuchadnezzar threatened to throw them in the fiery furnace, as I spoke in the last video about the Nebuchadnezzar watch. And yet they did not bow. You know the rest of the story. And so the thing is that the more ground you give to the devil, the more he's going to require of you. This is why this whole thing with this whole CBD-19 is about, and I said that like that intentionally on purpose, is about compliance. They want to see how you will comply. They want to see if you will resist. So now, this communist regime, fake authoritarian regime, counterfeit regime that's in the White House right now, that is funny. They're trying to say that, and these orders were given to down to the DHS, because they're trying to change language. They're trying to control reality and tell you who they deem as a terrorist, just like, oh goodness gracious, the former head of the department's DHS head under Obama, Janet Napolitano, thank you. Janet Napolitano, on that list of people who were threats, along with the KKK, they had labeled Christians at a certain time. Now watch this. Now this is who they want to make. See, this is all politicized, because instead of dealing with China, taking on China, who's trying to take over Taiwan, instead of Biden doing what he's supposed to do in Afghanistan, leaving thousands of Americans stranded right now, and saying that really there's no help, or saying that it's in the Taliban's hands to help. I mean, after Biden had broke the agreements that Trump already made with the Taliban to do a better, more responsible removal of troops, to do it in a better, safer way, and to get the Americans extracted from there. Biden cares more about aligning the military to investigate racism and to investigate, teach this critical race theory. And so he's using this washed up general who's just a punk to focus on you as the American citizen being the enemy. So think about that for a second. Now watch this. Now this was on NBC News the other day, but they're trying to pass this down to put in your mind what they memo, what they see as a potential threats via the Department of Homeland Security. Opposition to COVID measures. Okay, so if you oppose being locked in your house, if you oppose having curfews, as they have curfews in Australia, if you dare speak out and speak against and tweet against and Facebook against these things, if you show any type of opposition and have any original thought of your own, if you dare go out and do a rally, you are a potential terror threat. Think about that. Think about this communist regime from the Biden administration and Biden's Department of Homeland Security, how they would try to deem you as a potential terror threat. If you make claims of election fraud, belief that Trump can be reinstated, which, you know, there's some people out there who believe that. But just to even have your own mind, if you think that you are a terror threat, think about that. 9/11 anniversary and religious holidays. Okay, so whatever that means, but this is Biden's DHS. Think about that. All right, and so watch. So, too, and I put this up on my stories before, but these are nurses. They were heroes, true. Last year's heroes, this year's unemployed. We worked through the pandemic with no vaccine. Now they want to fire us. Yeah, so now they're trying to say either you get the vaccine or you have no job. Now think about that. This is just a step towards the mark of the beast. You can't buy, sell, or trade. You can't have a job. You can't do this. You can't enter in certain places unless you have the vax. unless you what else some our places are trying to do at venues when people go buy tickets to see certain games or concerts, that there are some places that literally had areas for the vax and the unvax, because people like crazy cult members are buying into this mess. Standing up against this, they rather bend over and take it and go along with it. And so it's sad that people would even yield and conform to this. I ask myself, where is the opposition and the lawsuits? But I'm glad to see that there are finally some rising up, and I'm glad to see that there is. So there's 130 something deputy sheriffs in California, or sheriff deputies, that are saying no, they are not going to comply to tyrants, and really they should all be filing a class action lawsuit, because the lawsuits would stop and nip this thing right in the bud. Because you're violating people's their 14th Amendment. You're violating them in so many different ways. This is also criminal to even force these on people. And compliance is death. I can't keep saying that enough. And so, with them trying to look into ways to shut down highways or crossing over into the next state unless you have a vax, you gotta, there's a time where you just gotta stand up and say, you know what? I'm going to fight this in every way possible. I'm going to stand up against this. Number one, as Christians, of course, we pray, we seek God, we try to be peaceful, but you mess with people's kids. You mess with their livelihood. People are only going to take so much. This is why you see people rising up. They're standing up. They're not complying, because you have to say and have a made up mind that enough's enough. The sheep, if you are a dumb, ignorant, gullible sheep, you are going to go over the cliff with the rest of them, and you're going to perish. The one thing we don't need is more big government. And I love what Ronald Reagan said years ago. He says one of the scariest things you can hear is a person coming to the door and saying, "Hello, I'm from the government and I'm here to help." The government does not care about your interests. They don't care about your best interests. These people out here today, Dr. Fauci or Dr. Dum Dum, Dr. Idiot, Dr. Buffoon, whatever you want to call him, he does not care about your interests. These people are here to serve a one world order. They're here to serve their own agenda. This is why the Democrats are only worried about January 6th, which that's another video I can do. That was an inside job. That was all. I've seen videos, man, you wouldn't even believe. Even with this whole Biden thing right now, when they stood down, and people trying to get on the planes to escape, which they couldn't even show the footage. People, Americans and other citizens in Afghanistan on the tarmac, you probably saw them running. They got up on the plane and they was all the way up in the air, hundreds of feet in the air, until the wheels were going in to close up, and people just falling off the wheels, falling to their death, hundreds of feet in the air. I mean, there was so many scenes, people into hiding, because you have such an incompetent president. And I'll show you some of that here in just a second. But you have DeSantis says Biden's letting Afghanistan burn. He's obsessed with taking away parental rights and forcing kindergartners to wear masks. Now think about this. Biden's education department to target governors for civil rights violations for banning school masks. Now think about that. He wants to call this a civil right to have masks, but yet he's trying to force people. Right, number one, they know that the government can't get away with just having people forcefully be vaccinated. So what he's trying to do is encourage these other businesses to go along with this and do their dirty work for them. This is why he's trying to, like he said the other day, if certain nursing homes don't comply or be fully vaccinated, then they would lose federal funding. So what you do is you're trying to bribe people, you're trying to force people by way of threatening them. If you don't do this, then we're going to take away this. But this old buffoon senile joke has not even taken the vaccine whatsoever. And they're trying to have you put something in your body that they will, you don't like, you don't even know what you're putting in there, but they're saying just take it. Hasn't even been FDA approved, but they say take it, right? So but they're forcing you to take this deal.
Hold him accountable.
But I'm gonna show you something here. And it's one thing when this incompetent administration is getting hit from the ones who covered them forever, MSNBCs or MSDNC, CNN, or AKA Clinton News Network, whatever. But watch, when they're slamming them for Afghanistan, something's wrong.
During this time, which has frankly been an utter failure. What we are seeing on the ground right now should have been done differently.
MSNBC.
There is only one person to hold responsible, and that is President Biden.
All around, this is just a horrible, horrible mar on the United States under President Joe Biden.
President Biden reportedly told his advisors he wanted to avoid tragic and humiliating images like those from the fall of Saigon after the humiliating U.S. withdrawal from Vietnam. Biden now has images as part of his legacy that are arguably far worse.
This is worse. The Secretary of State goes on TV this morning and says that this is not a new Saigon. He's right. It's worse.
The country is essentially now in the hands of the Taliban for all intents and purposes. They've taken over Kabul. The president, or should I now say the former president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, has fled the country. The Taliban have taken over the presidential palace. They've renamed the country the Islamic Emirate, taken down the Afghan flag, and hoisted up their own colors.
Grandpa Joe had a busy week.
And I'm taking some clips from a Mark Dice video. But here's one more.
Could see the obvious.
You know what? There's no way to put it, sugarcoat it. The words are harsh, and they should be. They should be harsh. Words like chaos, debacle, disaster, even comparisons to the fall of Saigon, for those of you who are old enough to remember that. That is the only way to describe what we are seeing right now in Afghanistan and what we have seen.
It's actually...
So, this administration can't even do things correctly, puts thousands of American citizens at risk, and yet their only concern is taking on U.S. citizens who oppose COVID threats, who feels or worries that this election was rigged or Trump can be reinstated. There's bigger things to worry about than dumb, idiotic stuff like that. But yet you're putting thousands of lives at risk, and you won't even stand up to your enemies. You won't stand up to China. You won't stand up to Russia, but you bow down and kiss their feet. But Biden is a domestic terrorist, and his administration. I'm going to say it again. Biden and his administration is a domestic terrorist. They're domestic terrorists. And they're raising up this army. This is why they've been trying to have all the army. And so the thing is, all the military, to be brainwashed with this critical race theory and to focus on dealing with white nationalism instead of focusing on the enemies at hand or far and abroad that want to even come and infiltrate the country. The priorities of this administration is all out of whack. And yet, when they're trying to force us to comply to these ungodly, unlawful, unconstitutional mandates, it's time to go tell them where to stick it. And it's time to stand up. It's time to, of course, number one, be prayerful. But we cannot bow down. You cannot keep giving in and giving them more. Enough is enough. If people can't see what's going on here, that it's all about control, it's all about a power grab. When you have a virus that has less than 1% mortality rate, a virus that has less than 1% mortality rate, this is all politicized. Yet they try to criticize Sturgis that had hundreds of thousands of people, but they wouldn't say nothing about Obama's party that had hundreds of people as well, at least over 400 guests, 200 and something workers celebrating his 60th birthday party. And he has a right to celebrate it. But again, they pick and choose who the winners and the losers are because it's all politicized. They make it that way. Politics is a dirty game. But the thing is that when they keep trying to take your rights, you don't even understand what they're going to try to pull next and what they're going to do next. And if you don't stand up, listen, we either hang together or we hang separate. And the thing is that we got to say no to anything that's unconstitutional, that's tyrannical, that is, this is out of control, and it's only going to get worse if you keep giving them more and giving them more and giving them more. All right, stay prayerful. God bless you. Until next time.